Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic.
Have you ever come across a kid, teen, or young person that you thought was a psychopath? What did they do to make you believe they were psychopathic? What happened when they got older? I have. I'm a forensic psychologist. Many years ago I tested a 9-year-old boy with a history of hurting other people, adults and children, cruelty to animals, and who took pleasure in dominating and frightening others. Most kids that are mean are that way on the surface, but are pained on the inside. Not this kid, very smart and methodical. When I briefly turned away to grab a piece of paper, he tried to stab me in the neck with a pencil. After he tried to stab me, his affect was unchanged. He was cool as a cucumber the entire time, and always had a pleasant grin. I've worked with a lot of disturbed and disturbing people, but no one has ever made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up like that. I wrote down his name on a small piece of paper and kept it in my wallet for years so I'd never forget. I moved away from that area, but I still think about that kid. No idea what happened to him. He's probably either in prison or a CEO at a tech startup. If you remember his name, you could Google him. I'm kinda curious. Also, your job sounds so interesting. I'd be too scared he'd be like Beetlejuice or Voldemort. ! I think I knew one of those as a kid. He calmly smashed in his mom's lodger's cat's head, tortured his lab until it was vicious, threw down a log from a roof, and brain damaged a kid just out of diapers. And zero nerves about making up bullshit no matter what evidence to the contrary. I was so happy when his parent moved away. Reading that honestly gave me chills. I remember growing up around a kid who had that same kind of vibe, hurting animals, lying without even blinking, like there was just nothing behind the eyes. Even as a kid I could tell something was seriously off. When his family finally moved away, I remember feeling this weird sense of relief, like the whole neighborhood could breathe again. Some people show the warning signs way too early. There was a kid down the street from me growing up that we weren't allowed to hang out with. He was physically and verbally violent to both people and animals. His only friends were other bad kids who were trying to keep the bar low for themselves. He crashed a few of my sister's high school, parents out of town, parties, and burned a lot of sentimental items. It turned out that his parents were trying to deal with his mental illness on their own because there was still a strong stigma against getting help for your kids. Once he was able to keep a job long enough to get healthcare, he got the help he needed for himself. He's almost 40 now, has a good job, long-term relationship, and no kids. He attributes everything good in his life to getting medicated. Finally, a story that is upbeat. I had a friend I was in Boy Scouts with, and I was in daycare at his house over a couple summers. He was intentionally cruel to people and got real enjoyment out of it. Like he would try to legit hurt people with slide tackles in soccer. Or put you in situations where he was superior and tease and demean you over it. As an adult he became a corrections officer at a city prison, which was almost his destiny. A couple years ago he got caught up in a scandal where officers were accused of torturing prisoners and running a drug ring with the gangs. Nobody I knew was the least bit surprised, except his mom, who thought it was a total witch hunt and a sham. Wonder if his enabling mom had something to do with who he became. Oh, 100%. He was always the victim and she never had any trouble finding an excuse for his behavior. He did some fucked up shit while I knew him, and I can't remember a single time he faced any consequences or got any help. I told this story on Reddit a few years back with a similar prompt. There was this kid we'll call Blaramy, a larger, ginger dude with a mullet in my comp sci class when I was like 16. Nice enough kid, sat next to me. I tried to be nice to him while everyone else picked on him. But he made it hard, kinda, because he was constantly boasting this campy power fantasy crap about how he was a vampire hunter, and if you made him angry he'd get blood vision and wouldn't be able to control his rage. Etc. Angsty high school kid. So that was plenty enough. But his sister, a year our senior, I come to find out is a werewolf hunter, and I'd see her sulk around the hallways in passing dressed all gothy. She had no friends either and was really defensive and mean to people. I just kept my distance. One day, Blaramy shows up at school with a pistol. I was sitting in the office doing a credit class, office aide, and I watched as everyone evacuated into classrooms and the cops showed up. This was 2004, different time, but they allowed his dad to come pick him up. I didn't actually see it, but the word around the school was that dad showed up in a fucking wizard robe. They both were pulled out, expelled, I dunno, they never came back, but I'll always remember feeling like Adam Sandler in Billy Madison, being like, boy, I'm glad I was nice to that guy. Nobody got hurt, thank God, but it was still scary. I wonder if he ever got help. You were just a side character in a YA novel. Blaramy took care of that vampire stalking you and had to move on to the next town without even getting to say goodbye. You could at least be a little grateful, bro. Thanks for the candy. Quote, is that a Dane Cook reference you somehow pulled from the depths of my memories? ! Man, I think y'all are overreacting a bit. You had 2 magical beast slayers and a wizard protecting your squishy NPC selves. Yes, he just didn't have real empathy for humans. When he got angry, he tried to strangle his mom and attacked staff at the house where he lived with scissors, knives and everything else handy. He didn't live full-time with his mom and I worked as a caretaker where he lived. He could be funny and likable, but something was always off. He turned out to be just that, raping and keeping a girlfriend trapped at the age of 18. Only thing is, he always cared for his animals. That's actually not uncommon. My half-brother. My father moved back to our home country, Ukraine, and I met my half-brother for the first time when he was 5. Kid was just wild. I got to know his mother and the first thing I saw were the bite marks on her arm. That kid bit her so hard that you could see the dent of every single tooth. The bruise was green and blue and that part of her arm doubled in size. Imagine bruises already turning green and you can still see the tooth marks. He showed me a 1-liter jar full of dead, huge grasshoppers. When I asked him where he found so many dead ones, he just shrugged and told me that they weren't dead when he put them in the jar. My father got him fucking kids' bow and arrows and I almost lost an eye. Luckily he only hit the bone right under my eye with the arrow. Then he tried doing the same to my brother. I saw him torturing a little baby street cat. Poor thing was only bones, and he threw stones at it and held onto its tail. Told my half-brother to stop, he didn't listen. Didn't give a fuck that I was his adult big sister. I got fed up and lifted him up, trying to walk away with him. Kinda held him in my arms, his back to my stomach, to keep him from running away. He started kicking me in my stomach as hard as he could. He loved trying to put his hand down my pants. Only tried it with women. We were supposed to go to the beach and I told his mother that I would break his arm if he would try doing that while we were at the beach. Only option I saw to make sure I would not get molested by a little kid. Last time I spoke with my father, about 3 years ago, my father told me that he is teaching that little kid how to shoot. Gave that then 8-year-old a gun to protect Ukraine from the Russians. My half-brother was happily reciting poems about killing enemies with his little kid voice. Guess they are both crazy. This kid is gonna be the next Dnipropetrovsk maniac. Holy shit. Torturing animals is a big one and sexual assault like that is just terrible. Sounds like he has a lot of issues at the moment. An ex had a son who was violent and angry from an early age. He would have these massive meltdowns, breaking things, yelling, screaming non-stop, etc. He was diagnosed with oppositional defiant disorder and nothing helped. I felt bad for him. As he got older, his mom thought it was hilarious to get him drunk. Even though he was on psych meds, he ran away after he threatened his sister with a large kitchen knife. Ended up in a mental health facility for kids, then killed himself the day after he was discharged. So sad all around. Holy shit, that's so fucked up. I lucked out. My freshly ex has a son that showed the same tendencies when we were first dating, including trying to kill his brother before he was even old enough to know what he was really doing. We threw an absolute fuckload of resources and time at him, therapy, school, IEAP, tons of time spent redirecting him and analyzing his schedule for triggers, working with him through those triggers. He's mostly grown out of it, which I love, but he spent so long abusing his little brother that now his brother is getting violent towards him. Little brother is otherwise the sweetest kid, but when it comes to his older brother, he gets 10-year-old homicidal. It's the faux part of his prior actions, but I hope they both have enough room to grow out of it. Glad you got away from that whole relationship, friend. I grew up with a kid. He would get very violent randomly, like no discernible reason. As he got older, he kind of started to sort of get a handle on it. Like he would wait till teachers weren't watching type of stuff. Real messed up kid. Anyway, when he was 19 he finally got arrested because he beat a guy to death. When the police went to serve the warrant, he got in a fight with them. So he caught a few more charges. Then the police found his girlfriend chained up in the basement. So he caught a few more charges. I think he's still got like 12 years till he's eligible for parole. But if that man ever walks free again, it's a huge failure of the justice system. He's a rabid dog. There's nothing to be done for him. Putting him down will save everyone a lot of pain and suffering. I knew a guy like that. Got in fights, hid it well. He absolutely hated me because some of the girls he liked were into me. I remember at a dance in high school I saw him just staring at me across the gym. So I stopped and stared back. A girlfriend of mine came over and grabbed me and said, "Nope, stop right now, you can't do that," with real fear in her voice for me. She pushed me away out of his sight. 2 years after high school he killed his girlfriend's baby. Beat it, bit it all over its body, strangled it. What's interesting is he comes from a very nice, well-rounded family. They serve the community, help local kids, etc. He was just born crazy. I've known a lot of people who escaped, great families, and could tell horror stories about what happened behind those pretty walls. Jesus fucking Christ. I think he's still got like 12 years till he's eligible for parole. But if that man ever walks free again, it's a huge failure of the justice system. He's a rabid dog. There's nothing to be done for him. I think you're right. These kinds of murderers are always a threat to others, no matter how many time passes. Here in Germany, there was a case with a man from Africa who suddenly broke into an elderly couple's house and literally butchered them, tortured them to death with a knife. He didn't even know them and didn't steal anything from the house either. He got caught and was deemed insane, so instead of trial and life in prison, he was sent to a psych ward. Fast forward 3 years, he was behaving pretty good in the psych ward and the doctors thought it was a good idea to let him go on supervised walks into a nearby park. That seemed to work. He started to behave even better, so they decided to let him go on unsupervised walks. As soon as he was out without staff watching him, he killed a random passerby in this park. And the scariest part is, there are quiet psychos who are way more dangerous than impulsive psychos, because they can control themselves and act normal in public. There was this elderly German guy, always nice to everyone, hardworking, volunteering and well respected in the local community. After he died of old age about 15 years ago, his children found a hidden basement under his garage, full of human remains. The nice grandpa was actually a serial killer who murdered at least 10 women and managed to never get caught.